Oh, that's such a bummer.
Testing, testing. How's that?
I think it's taking a second to catch up. Okay. There is an echo. All right, what about now? Is there an echo now? Now, no echo. All right, cool. Oh, there's an echo for me now. Dang, I'm so Fisher Price right now, guys. I'm so sorry. Forgive me while I sort through this. Okay, we just have to roll with the delay in chat a little bit. All right. Where to begin? Oh my goodness, so many of you guys have watched this video and it's melting my little heart. So at first I just want to say thank you because I think that anytime you create something, it's kind of like a proof of concept. You do it for you. I think that's the most important thing is you do it for you, but you're also like, hey man, I'm gonna put this out into the world and hopefully some people catch it. Totally get if they don't, but this is on my heart and in my head. And so thank y'all so much. Like I can't even stress how cool it is to see so many people like sharing and being vulnerable in a space where I feel like it's just not cool to have hope anymore. It's not cool. It's not cool to have hope. You're looked at like you're naive and you don't or you've never been through anything. That's what I'm seeing a lot. So all of the beautiful supportive messages, of course, you take the good with the bad, right? You take the positive with the negative, and a lot of the negative comments are, this lady's never been through anything and she's never had a hard life. And I kind of take that as a compliment because it means that I don't wear the pain on like my outward. It's not there for you to see and be like, I can tell this person's had like a hard life. So, um, yeah, I think part of this was me wanting to like, one, get relative with y'all, but then also give you like a little bit of background lore on why I feel like I had to make this video. But let me go through the comments a little bit first. This video resonated with me a lot and I shared it with all of my close friends. Ugh, that makes me feel so good. How long did it take me to make the video? Okay. So I can tell you that um from like writing out the essay to filming and editing, it took me about, 2 months maybe. But I would be lying to you because I was going through my I have a Notion, so if you need like an app, and this is I'm not selling you, I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's just something that's helped me wrangle my ADHD brain. I put everything inside of my Notion. And I was going through it, and a couple years ago, I had a newsletter where I started like trying to introduce tragic optimism to people. But I had started writing this script like 2 years ago. I started writing the essay like 2 years ago, and then decided that I want to make a video for it in January. So I've been like slowly adding little bits to January. So I made it. I technically started it, getting serious. Like, oh, I need to put this message out like in September. But it started much before that. Hope is out, tragic optimism is in. Okay, I respect that. I respect that. It's not like blind hope, it's not naive hope, it's just like real, man, life is not a sitcom and there's miserable things that happen. But if we all stopped anytime something miserable happened, we'd honestly make no progress or do anything. Um, how do you feel about the lack of truth in the postmodern world? Everyone thinks truth is relative. I think it's horrifying because it creates a space where um reality is not the like the default, you know? That's I think it's terrible because there's something empowering about facing reality, even if it's painful, even if it's horrible. And I think that can speak to, I'm sure like many of you have stressed out about something and then when you finally like sit down and you're like, "Okay, I'm just going to do it." And you're like, "Oh, I wish I would have just done this already." Like we delay we delay that and we turn away from it and we stop progress. So I think it's a horrible state, but I think part of it is because we don't encourage things like tragic optimism and we sell this version of like what reality is supposed to be. So then people turn away from that truth because they think, well, everyone else has it figured out, or everyone else is having a good time, or everyone else is doing this. And it's like, that's not true. That's not true. And if we were just honest with each other, then we could like get a starting place of where we are and then we could move forward. So it's a very good question, Jonathan. Jeremy said I talked with like-minded friends who were pessimists, and after a 5-hour convo, we discovered that we were also optimistic, just to a lesser degree. I I feel, and that, like I'm totally like speaking out of my butt right now, but I feel like a lot of people who are optimist or pessimistic or nihilistic, again, anecdotal, um, have just like lost the light and want so badly to believe in something or feel something that like gives them the light again, but they're like very pulled away from it. And I feel like ultimately like most human beings truly do want to like aim up and air towards that, but it's scary. It's scary. Why would you put all your faith into something for it to turn around and disappoint you or like, you know, or to not hash out? Cody said I emptied my video game wish list because of that video. Okay, hear me out. I love a good video game. I love a good video game. So please don't dog yourself out too hard and don't treat you. I feel like we swing between like sharp pendulums and you're like, all right, I'm like hella deep in video games and I'm doing too much and like spending way too much time or like more time than I healthily should. So I'm going to cut it all out. And it's like if it brings you joy to some extent, you don't have to like get rid of everything and you don't have to like turn into like a I need to do this. It's just like balance, you know? It's like balance. So please be kind to yourself and totally respect that you emptied your video game wish list. But like if you want to keep like one, you know, that's okay too. Um, man, I'm so glad that you guys were good with like hearing from James Baldwin. I feel like we're one of the things that I think are so unfortunate about existing right now, especially in the social media space where we're like constantly chasing aesthetics and chasing a new trend and chasing this and chasing that. We completely ignore the fact that there's so much to pull from the past. And then we like put ourselves in this position where we're like, no one understands and no one's ever gone through this. And it's like, yeah, we've had like these very specific things like internet access, but the human condition is like so universal and we kind of I don't know, we dismiss the human condition way too much, and I think it hurts a lot of people. How do you pronounce your middle? Okay, so my name is Deja, like Asia the continent, but with a D in front of it. And then Sade, Deja Sade, exactly like the artist. Um, Jeremy said again, it's also good to know that there's much more of us than we realize. I think we're in this super weird space where people feel like you have to pick a side with everything. And if you're not on this side, then you're against me. And that just doesn't really leave like a lot of room for nuance. And it doesn't leave a lot of room for like asking questions or making sure we're even talking about the same thing. Something I realized in this video that I didn't realize before was that um I thought that I emphasized that I'm just talking specifically about unfettered capitalism, and a lot of people who were critical of the video feel like I'm just like denigrating capitalism or like you're critiquing capitalism, which is like one, I think it's important to critique or be able to describe things that you are experiencing. It doesn't mean that I'm like, get rid of all of this. We all need to be this way. It's like, no. There's a difference between engaging in capitalistic endeavors. So somebody who's like, I'm going to start a lemonade stand. That is not the same person who was like, hey, let's destroy the Congo. Like these are very different things, and we have to learn nuance and being able to say that like maybe things are, a little bit too far, and maybe like my level of comfort shouldn't override like destroying this part of the world, like that's an okay thing to discuss. There is a difference. You can say that there is a difference between engaging in capitalistic endeavors and unfettered capitalism, which is a whole entire system. It's not an individual thing. It's a system that eats everything, and we should be able to talk about that and not just be like, well, it's great and innovation and da 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 da. It's like there's two sides to everything. And when we try and like pick, oh, well, I'm a hardcore capitalist and capitalism is innovation. It's like, yes, but there's also a lot of situations where let's say you have like a doctor who starts out with like, you know what, I'm gonna find a cure for cancer, da 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 da. And then he gets scouted for like a celebrity billionaire. And now he's not working on the cure for cancer anymore. He's being the personal doctor to this billionaire. Like we lose things too. And that's not a problem to be able to like discuss those things. So we have to be able to understand that someone describing something in its entirety and not just the good things is not saying like this is throw the whole baby away. It's like, come on, we have to. And the same thing with like social safety nets. Public school would be considered like socialism if we really want to go, but we can't just describe everything that involves like helping the people around us as this is socialism, it's the bad thing. It's like, come on, we have to be realistic. And I just think it's really unfortunate that we try to like swing so hard into these things, and we think that like I need to believe everything about this side and this portion or else I'm a hypocrite, which is like we're all hypocrites. And I think the more comfortable you get with acknowledging the ways that you are hypocritical, the more free you are to be able to find solutions, right? Like me describing negative effects of unfettered capitalism while engaging and working and living in a capitalist society. Cool, yes, to a certain extent, I am a hypocrite, but I'm able to acknowledge that. But again, I feel like who better to describe the pitfalls of the system that you're living in than people who are actually living in and engaging in it. So we have to like be willing to have conversations like that instead of, oh, you're a socialist or you're a like whatever, dude. I'm a hypocrite. Okay, next, how do we talk about like how we can create a more balanced view of the world and not necessarily focus on like people say things like you can't guarantee equality of outcome, which is 100% true. Like people have different levels of ambition and different levels of desire, different ideas of success, but we can get closer to equality of opportunity more so than I think that we're willing to acknowledge, um because we build our identities around how we think that we're supposed to be, and it hurts to break things about how you think you're supposed to be. Sorry, that was kind of a rant. Let's see. I was doing tragic optimism, but didn't know that I was doing it, or I didn't know that it was a term. I think I think that's what a lot of us are doing. And I think it helps to have a label to a certain extent so that we don't get too focused on attaching a label to things. But I think that's the beauty of the human condition, right? Like for you to be operating and doing something without knowing that there's a name for it or being able to attach a label to it is like the beautiful aspect of being like a human and a person, because we're probably from two completely different backgrounds and we're doing the same things in different parts of the world. And it's like, how do we lean into that? How do we lean into those things that we naturally lean into before we attach labels to everything as like, okay, maybe we like pour into these things. So I think that's a beautiful, beautiful point. After watching your video, Red, White, and Lost, after watching your video, I went for a walk and then spent time going down Absurdist Alley. What a great day exploring authors I hadn't thought of since I was in high school. I love that. There's so many things that we figured out when we were younger and we kind of discard them, which is really unfortunate because it's the adults that make everything complicated. We make everything complicated. I'm sure if you went back, you'd find way more answers than you realized. Happy said sometimes I stopped facing reality because I faced too much of it, like taking a break. That's understandable. That's completely understandable. When you say progress, I hear movement, but I get told that there are a lot of truths. Everyone has their own experience. What your video nailed was the potential key to bring us together again. The human experience. I always tell people if we must walk on thin ice, we might as well dance. And it sounds so naive, right? Like, how dare you dance at a time like this? But like, also, like, why not? Why not? Like, who told you that? Whose voice is that? Whose voice is that in your head that tells you, like, you can't dance? Now is not the time to dance. It's like, we're here for like 5 minutes. Thoughts on today's news about United Healthcare CEO and how it relates to the buildup of stress within an oppressive system? I think that everyone has a role in resistance and the revolution. And I think that it's terrible that people are pushed to that point, but I can see why. And I think what happens is a lot of people become frustrated. They'll watch videos like this tragic optimism video and they'll feel like, oh, you're falling into passivity. And like, I don't think what they understand is like there's levels to revolution. There's levels to like raising the collective consciousness and everyone has a role. And I think I don't know the background of this person, but like surface level, you feel like it's like it's starting to crack, you know? It's starting to crack and people are starting to to engage in the behaviors that can only come from a result of living in an oppressive system. And this is not a justification. This is context. This is like I'm not shocked. I guess I should say that. I'm not encouraging anything like that, but I'm saying I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised. And I think you can only Tupac has a great interview where he says like you can only like eat dinner in front of people so much and sh- show them that there's a party going on and they're not invited. You can only do that so much before there's a break. And I think part of the goal with this tragic optimism video was kind of, I don't want to say necessarily opening people's minds, but to kind of like what you're feeling is not because you are a failure and it's not because you just haven't figured it out and it's not because you're just not good enough and it's not because you haven't tried enough and it's not. It's not. It's not. And the sooner that more people can get on the same page of understanding that, like, these surface level things that they're putting in front of us to distract us, to make us turn against each other, the 98% is exactly that, like a distraction. And it's not you. You're not crazy, and you're not broken, and you're not just not good enough. Like it's not that. And the more we can get people kind of aware of that, then the more like collective movement comes about. The more people move away from trying to like build meaning by chasing aesthetics. Build meaning by, I'm going to throw out all my clothes and I'm going to be this person now. And then like in 8 months, you're like, well, I have a new wardrobe and I thought that this is like, no, no, that's not it. That's not it. And like the more people that we can like wake up to that, and people have to be ready, you know? The people who are like diehard capitalists and holding the line for the status quo, like you guys are here. But I think it's important to understand that there's people who build their entire identities around like this dream, and it's a, a steep fall. So you have to be patient. I know like we need revolution now, we need change now, but it's like you have to understand the breakdown that's happening with someone when they realize that they've been lied to. That's a steep fall. So I don't want to say baby steps because we're long overdue. I think we as Americans specifically, I say US citizens, um, have been sheltered and shielded much longer than we probably should have. Um, Tragic optimism is a great connection to the eldership you experience. Is your experience is centered in not every old person is bitter, not every bitter person is old. The more people that I meet, the more I realize just how much that is true. And not every older person is like a boomer who's like screw everybody and did it. Like no, and I think we have done a horrible thing with using the internet as like a replacement for elders or like ignoring older people because you're like, well, we have the internet, I know everything, and there's something to be said for lived experience for sure, and we can't just also dismiss that. Not to say that like young people don't know, right? Like, but also there's people who have lived and seen things that have already happened and they're watching it happen again, and everything's like new and shiny. Cody, it was more so spending too much money on games for dopamine and not wanting to play them. Respect that. The closer you can get tuned into like your dopaminergic responses, it, it's shocking. So like little side quest story. I completely forgot about this. But my dad is paralyzed from the chest down. He's been paralyzed from the chest down since he was 18 years old. And so I've never like seen my dad walk, and he's like the most like tragically optimistic person I've ever met in my entire life. He's like filled with joy and he's like kind and sweet, and he could be bitter and he could be angry because it was like a random act of violence that, took the lower half of his body. But he's like the most loving person that I've ever met. And he got very sick last year. I had a lot of stuff happen last year, but he got very sick. And I had to fly back to Long Beach to help him. And I was so stressed out about um going to see him in the hospital because my grandmother had called me and told me that he had been like put in like a coma. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was so frightened about this that I missed my flight, and I've never missed a flight or anything like that. And as they like told me, I was like rushing to the gate, they let me know like, hey, you've missed this flight. I went to go and like reschedule it, but then I went over to the cafe and I bought a brownie. And I went to go and sit down and I felt like the relief come into my body, like it's so crazy, like the dopamine wash over my body as I like bit into this like sweet sugary brownie. And I was like, oh, like it clicked in my brain like this was a self-soothing moment. Like I was so stressed about this thing, which caused me to miss my flight because I never miss a flight. And for me to leave that close, like a part of me was like avoiding seeing my dad this way. And then I used like the sweetness, the dopamine sugar to like self-soothe and make myself feel better. So like when you can get clued into like the things that drive you or, push you into aversion, and then the things that soothe you, you can like become a superhero low key. I didn't realize up until that point that I had used like food and like sweets to like make me feel better. But it was like I could feel the like release happen as I like bit into this thing, and I was like, oh. So if you can do that, like it's you're on a solid path that you recognize that this is something that I'm dipping into because of dopamine. So please be kind to yourself and don't treat yourself like a monster. Let's see. Sorry. What videos do you play? Video games do you play? I like open world, like old games like BioShock, Fallout 4. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, so a lot of Shadows of Mordor. I haven't played any new games, so if you have any recommendations, definitely drop them. I'm kind of like oh, I like have you guys ever played, it's just like a deep cut. But it's called Abe's Oddworld or Abe's Odyssey, and it's now that I'm saying it out loud, it's kind of like poignant. It's kind of poignant, so go and like look that game up and then laugh at me at why I'm like laughing at me putting these two things together. And I played this game when I was very young, and now I'm like saying it out loud to you guys, and I realized that maybe it impacted me in more ways than one. Not to classify this, but just go check it out. Um, I need to live unseriously so I can reserve my mental resources for when I really need to be serious. I mean, necessary versus unnecessary suffering. We give so much time and attention to things. There's someone on TikTok right now who's doing a great job at like educating the world, but he's dropping like, 5 to 6 videos a day of information that you can't really do anything with. I'm a very like, give me a call to action. Don't just dump me with like horrifying news. Like, give me something to do with this. But he's doing like 5 to 6 times a day, and we haven't even there's definitely movements, things that are happening that we should be aware of, but we haven't started the new administration just yet. And like those constant updates, they make you feel like, okay, there's something I should be doing, but then you're not giving me anything that I should be doing, and it just sits with you. So like take a step back. Necessary versus unnecessary suffering. Do I need to be engaged with this right now? Do I have a specific call to action? Is there anything? No. Okay, like I can't. And that's terrible because you want to be aware of all of the things, but you can't. That you'll put yourself into like a freeze state where you can't do anything. So, yes, live unseriously. And when it's time to buckle in, you can lock in and you're not treating yourself like a beast. We don't humanize each other enough. No. And the internet absolutely hates nuance, and that's going to be the next big topic. I think so because it's easy, right? Like we have to classify information and people and things and situations so that we know what to do with it, because it takes up like a lot of brain space, to put it like simply. It takes up a lot of mental capacity to constantly categorize, and so we don't like that. We don't like having to actually sit back and think about things. If I can like, okay, I'm categorizing you as this, I could put you over there. Okay, you do this, I'm putting you over there. And it's really unfortunate because there's so much to learn about people. There's so much to learn about people. And so many people have a story to tell. There's a lot of people who share these positive ideas and just a lot of muck in the way. Uh-huh. We Andre said we have a lot of distance between us, and I wish we could all be in community together. It's so wild because I think the internet has like pushed us a little bit further apart. Um, just echo chambers and things like that. I like your sweater. It's cute. Thanks. I got it from a random thrift store. It's like $2. Um, I don't wonder if it's because we don't have enough true community, so we make and enforce sides to feel a part of something. I 100% believe that. I feel like I don't want to upset anyone, but I think like the rise that we're seeing with MAGA For the most part, like the majority of MAGA is it's like a communal cultural thing that they didn't really like have. Um, and it makes them feel like they're a part of something greater than themselves, which if honestly, if you can't take anything else away from the rise of MAGA, that should be a testament of how badly people want to feel a part of something. Um, Especially when you're trying to figure out like, oh, policy, like, no, no, no. Feeling a part of something is what it is. I feel like a broken record when I start my response to things with "it depends." Cool, I'd rather you be a broken record than someone who's just spewing like things that sound good or reaffirm their own biases or like for some reason like we just don't care about context anymore and that's crazy to me because we look at it, oh, you're making an excuse. It's not an excuse. I'm providing you context and background so that you don't dismiss or discard people who have like different lives than you, different experiences than you. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. When you think about it. What's a good way to address what I call intellectual laziness? How does one motivate actual curiosity? It's so funny because I feel like that stresses me out the most. Like, oh, your lack of curiosity is is shocking to me. Ask questions. I think the best way that you can do that is asking questions. That's one of my favorite things to do is ask questions. We move so much into telling, 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 but if you can like seek to understand where someone else is, where they are, where they're existing, one, you can learn a lot, and two, you can like make the decision if it's I don't want to say if it's a waste of time, but like are you wasting your time trying to beat something into someone? There's too many people who are like needing and craving and learning to try and like beat knowledge into someone else. So ask questions. Figure out where they are and not to try to trap. I feel like people ask questions to like try to trap people. No, 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 no. Learn. Learn. Figure out where people are and then yeah, ask questions. Ask questions. That's way more I guess fruitful than trying to like tell somebody. Um let's see. I was trying to get past someone close to me. I was trying to get past someone close to me who supports the orange man. Can I be tragically optimistic here? This one's hard because even just a couple weeks ago, I was like, "Duh, duh, 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 duh." um, I don't want to talk to you. This one's hard. Um, I wish I had an answer for this. I feel like I'm gonna let someone else answer. So if anyone else is going through that where you want to get past, you know, someone close to you supporting the orange man, um, maybe ask questions about why they supported them, and if I maybe like make your determination there, because if it's rooted in like othering other people, like that's rough. But if it's like because they didn't really like know what tariffs were or like identity politics, well, I feel like this person looks like me, so they might have had more. Or, you know, this one's especially tough because America has an issue with billionaire worship, an issue with that, and not because they like think that they'll become a billionaire, but because for some reason we feel that if someone is in power or they are successful or they are it's because they're like a better person or they deserve it or like they deserve the power that they have. So this one is especially tough. So I'd kind of figure out like the reason why they did it. I think first and foremost like ask questions. Ugh. And like if there's someone who's it's like very close to you or like your mom or something, that one's tough, right? But ask questions. I say I'm an unwilling participant in capitalism, you know? And you're probably not engaging in like unfettered capitalism taking advantage of someone. Like there's a difference between the system of unfettered capitalism and engaging in capitalistic endeavors. There's a difference. Um, let's see. Honestly, going to work is dreadful, but some people make it worthwhile. I find the more community, the more meaningful life feels despite a lack of changes in people's realities. 100%. Yes. It's people. It's hard to heal and grow without the language to describe what exactly we're healing and growing from, and often the language itself is so inaccessible to so many. I agree. I I think one of the things that makes me saddest about my kid brother is he knew really early on. He was like, this world is insane. Like you're expecting me to live in this world and all none of these things make sense. And it's like, what do you say to someone? Like they're right. But you think that you're the only one going through it. And I think it's important to know that you're not, and it's not you. How does one build a community from the ground up, and how do we communicate with more established ones? Um, I think this is interesting because I feel like a lot of times we think that like we have to start something brand new. We have to like, oh, we have to go out but chances are there's probably someone in your area who's already doing it. They may not have like a lot of fanfare, they may not have a lot of insight, but like chances are someone's already doing it. And part of the frustration I think that stops us from moving forward is we think that we have to start something new and then we start it. We're like, no one's paying attention and it's frustrating and we stop. But chances are someone's already doing it. So like, you know, go look at the walls on your local coffee shop and you'd be surprised at the things that you find. And it's okay if it's small. It doesn't need to be some grand sweeping. We're going to take over the world and we're going to throw bricks and we're going to do like it's okay to start small, like little pockets of like resistance. Because the most natural thing would be to like lay in bed and rot. That's cool. You're in it, bro. But like little pockets. So start there. And then if after doing that you can't find anything, start a meetup group. When I moved to Nashville, I started this group called Everything But Happy Hour. Everything But Happy Hour because Nashville's very centered around let's go to happy hour, which is fine, right? Like, go do your thing. But I wanted to meet people in the daytime and what their hobbies were and like do that. Be that person and then you only have to be that person for a little while until you get more people and you're like, "Hey, I can't do this by myself. Does anybody else want to take over hosting or like figure out what you want to do?" And you'd be surprised at how many other people want to do that. When I started on socials, I started because I was like, "Wow, I it's the pandemic. I just learned how to roller skate. I I have a form of exercise that's making me go outside and I feel good. I want other people to know about this." And like it's spiraled to where like now sorry, where now I'm like sitting and talking with you about tragic optimism like and it would have never happened if I hadn't been hey, I am enjoying this. I want to find other people who will enjoy this. Let's see. Build community with every interaction you have. Try to. You'd be surprised. Everyone's expecting everyone to have an attitude or be upset, and you'd be surprised at how many people aren't. Or want that. Or want that. People are hungry. They are hungry to have real conversations. That doesn't mean like trauma dump on everybody, but people are so hungry to have real conversations and interactions that aren't just surface level ha ha he he. I'm in Chattanooga in the middle of Magaland, but you can still find like-minded people and sway ones that aren't. I'm in Chattanooga, so if you ever want to like, you know, be two optimistic people in the middle of Magaland. I completely understand. I completely get it. I wish that people had like little signifiers for their little small business that I could just like, oh, let me go support your small business. How do we get our family to realize that? Is it through communicating and consistent changes? I would say just asking questions. Like, man, just really just ask questions every people figure out where they are. And then sometimes you'll hear people complain or be upset. And maybe it's that time to like ask questions enough to drop a little nugget to be like, well, this is part of a wider issue. Just like weave the thread for them, but not in a way where you're like trying to beat them down. But sometimes people just can't bridge it. And you have to understand that you're going up against like generations and generations of propaganda. Like really truly understand what you're up against when it comes to like trying to like wake people up to reality and things that are going on. One, reality's hard. That's why like, you know, all of these things to distract us are so prevalent, especially in our society, and why, like we've got some really crazy stats in terms of like drugs and alcohol and all of these distractions that like there's a reason. Like you have to understand like this is what you're going up against. There's so many layers. So patience and asking questions and understanding that the propaganda goes deep. And doesn't and not believing propaganda doesn't mean that you hate your country or anything like that. In case that needs to be said, like you just wouldn't you want to love something, or wouldn't you want someone to love you for who you were instead of like an idea of who you were? Like that's the reality of the situation. It's better to face reality so that you can move accordingly instead of like living in like a fantasy land. You don't want to live in Neverland and hang out with the Lost Boys. Um, let's see. Capitalism has given us so much prosperity, so much also to innovation and prosperity, perhaps at the cost that is perhaps too much, and folks are finally becoming aware. I think so. I think that's important to be where we're at. And I think for the people who knew that already, it's a very it can be frustrating when you feel like you're screaming into a void and you want people to hurry up and get to where you are. But I remember like being sick of Apple like 5 years ago and having everyone be like, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" And I'm like, you don't see what's happening, that we keep getting sold the same product over and over again, and like you don't see how we're getting like, but now people are coming around to it. So I think one of the things is, especially if you're like a neurodivergent person, is you might recognize patterns before the rest of the world does. And that can be lonely in and of itself. But would you rather not know? Would you rather not be in the know? I love Vince Staples. Chronic. Yes. So if you guys haven't listened to Vince Staples is a rapper from Long Beach who does a great job at expressing his nihilism through his music. He has a TV show, the Vince Staples show, that's actually really good at calling out some of the things that you might not be paying attention to, or like the hypocrisies of our reality. Um, I think I'm super far back. Any TV shows or movies that relate to tragic optimism? Definitely the Vince Staples show. Definitely in my video, everything, everywhere, all at once. That's gonna be a huge one. There's so many movies that you probably don't even clock um as like tragic optimism gems. Lord of the Rings is like a huge one. It took me as much as it's like my favorite series, it took me a really long time to recognize that. But I'll create a list for you guys of tragic optimistic TV shows and movies. Tragically optimistic. Let's see. It's so validating to see these thoughts articulated so beautifully. The idea that we can hold space for struggle and hope feels like the balance we all need right now. Thank you for fostering that with your work. Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. It feels so good to have like a group of people who are willing and seeking that instead of like, oh, you've never had a hard day in your life. That's what I saw. Um, that's what I saw a bit was like, oh, you can just tell this woman comes from money and she's never done anything hard. And it's like, so like a little bit of background lore. I think one of the worst things that we can do is assume that because somebody seeks joy, and not to the detriment of like, you know, like Rick in Rick and Morty, but someone who seeks joy or makes a conscious effort to seek joy, the worst thing that we can do is assume that they do that because they are naive, or assume that they do that because they've never experienced anything. When I was a wee lass, so when I was like 21, 22, um, someone had started to stalk me and they had decided that they were going to like me and told me this. And they told me how they were going to get away with this for months. So, for months of my like first year as a 21-year-old or 22-year-old, I had this person like threatening my life. Complete stranger, by the way. The person that I had like went on 2 dates with, complete stranger. And I did all of the things that they tell you to do. I was a law-abiding citizen. I believed in the American dream. This is part of like my deconstructing. There's like a couple like events that have like fully like, oh, this is the reality of the situation. But they told me this repeatedly, and I had done all the things that they tell you to do. I told the police. I um filed restraining orders, got police reports, all that fun stuff. And it didn't stop him, and the police didn't stop him. And two things happened. One, I had finally got a detective assigned to my case, and they had told me he had showed up and the detective was like, "Hey, I had a conversation with this person and like maybe you guys are just having a misunderstanding." And it was just like, "Oh, snap." It was like, I'm going to be a Facebook memorial. Like, this person is going to hurt me and they're going to get away with it. And they're going to make a t-shirt with my name on it. And like, that's just going to be an end of it. Or like, if, the people around me apply enough pressure, they'll get like some law passed in my name after the fact. This is what I'm having to like conceptualize as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old. And after about like 7 months of like mental emotional warfare that this person waged on me, and like complete isolation, and me like processing the fact that like, wow, this person he's going to get away with ending your life, and you have two choices. Like, this is hell. You could let him do it and the pain will stop, the suffering that you are experiencing will stop, and then that will be the end of it. Or you could fight for your life. And very long story short, eventually he did come for me, and he broke into my house, and I ended up having to defend myself against him and fight. And I think a lot of times people will say things like, I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask to be here. And you're right. No one did. No one asked. And then we wake up every day and we eat and we drink and we go to work and we go to school and we come home, and we eat and we drink and we go to work and we go to school and we come home, and we're existing. But to consciously choose, right? When you have the option to be like, one, I could opt out, because that's what he would tell me. Is like, maybe I'll get you to opt out. You could opt out. You could let this person do this and opt you out, or you could fight. And when you make the conscious choice to like fight for your life, you have no choice but to like show up. So I'm going to show up fully for this thing that I chose, right? I didn't choose to be born. But when this terrible situation happened, and I had the choice to essentially like be born. I chose life. I chose my life. And so it's like, why would I phone it in? Why would I not try to do everything that I could do to live as fully as I possibly can, to give it all that I have? If I made the choice, right? Like I could have taken these other two options. So I think you can't assume that because someone does not wear the outward effects of what you would consider a traumatizing or a very difficult life, that they haven't lived or they haven't gone through anything, because you might miss out on things. So you have to choose to do this thing. You have to choose it. And it's unfortunate, um, because you could opt out. And we're not allowed to talk about that. Like, life is optional. And as hard as it would be on everybody else around you, like it's an option. And it's like we have to constantly choose. And if you're going to consciously choose, then like why would you spend your time here making other people miserable or exacting misery or being a monster or not trying to like alleviate suffering in whatever little like small way that you can. So like we can't dismiss things or assume that hope is naive, or oh well, you're smiling because you haven't gone through anything. And it's like, no, I'm smiling because I've like gone through hell and I've seen the darkness, and I could be a monster and I could be all of these things, but you choose not to. It's a choice. It's a choice. Again, I think that's like the biggest thing that I want people to take away from that tragic optimism video is like, this is a choice. It's all a choice. Okay, sorry. That was kind of like a tangent, but let me get back. And I don't want to feel like I need to like co-sign or like, this is why you should listen to me, but also just like, know that I'm not speaking from a place of like, just smile. It's like, no, man. Like I've seen the darkness, and in more ways than one, in multiple ways, in so many ways. And maybe it's a little bit from my dad, because it's hard to like complain, I guess, or like wallow when, he was paralyzed at 18 and he's still like just like so incredibly good and he could be a monster. And it's like, how dare I be a monster, There's no what? Let's see. Is it oh, let's see. Do you think fame is really a problem, or humans can handle it with grace? I mean, this one's tough. Well, I think fame can be a problem, right? Like we wouldn't see so many people like join the 27 Club, or like so many artists. I think it's a problem when you put your salvation in it, because everybody wants to be known and everybody wants to be valued, and we think that being known or being famous will bring us value. And I think that realization that it doesn't, now just more people know your name and you still feel the same way, it can be really painful for people. So I do think there's people who can, handle it with grace, but I think the people who probably do better with it are the ones who, I don't want to say don't want to be famous, but the people who don't attribute feeling better or feeling differently or seeking validation with fame. I think those people might have a better go at it. But everybody's different. Everybody's different. But I think fame, I feel like, can make people feel much more lonely, because now you have like millions of people knowing your name and you still feel the same exact way that you did before, and you thought that you would feel different. So that can be frightening. I think putting the validation in any like mile marker like that can be frightening. Let's see. Oh, please tell your dad that the tragic optimism that he spread has far-reaching implications. I greatly admire this mindset. My mom said the same stuff about not engaging. Yeah, man. He's like the sweetest person and sees the kindness in everyone and like just has zero bitterness in his heart. And that's like a, how do you follow that, you know? How do you follow that up? Let's see. I haven't. Have you read Adrienne Marie Brown's latest book? Olivia said this. It's about compassionate approaches to community conflict. I haven't, but any recommendations that you guys drop, I'm gonna write them down so I can check them out because I love recommendations. So we said Adrienne Marie Brown. I think I'm so far back in comments. Let me see. Okay. I think I'm so sorry, you guys. Just wanted to add that the vast majority of Americans are not actually capitalists if they don't own property that passively produces capital for them. Tell them that, okay? Tell them that. And even if they own that property, um, do they own it? Do they still have to pay taxes on it? Can it be seized at any point in time? Let's see. Other countries that have a value system that supports the welfare of the people and not the corporations tend to have a higher trust rate in the government. I think this is so interesting because I was in a civics class the other day and or a couple months back and they were like, like what's your measure of success for the government? And it was so interesting to hear how different generations answered this. And I don't think people realize how important it is to like have a higher trust rate in your government or have like a high happiness rate and like what goes into happiness. How do you measure that? The thing is that I don't think that's a bad thing to want your government to also be able to like take care of its people. I don't see why that we shouldn't have both, why you can't have both. Can you be skeptical and optimistic at the same time? I think so. I think it's discernment, but you don't have to be blindly optimistic. Like you can be, I don't want to say you can be tragically optimistic, but it's a strategy, right? Like, and it's not necessarily like, oh, let's always look on the bright side of things, but it's being able to like take a step back and take like, you have to kind of have a love for humanity. And I think that a love for humanity, I really feel like is rooted in the relationship that you have with yourself. And if you're like unkind and very cynical and very like hard and on yourself, I think it's much harder to be able to like peep little windows of joy and things like that. So yes, you can be skeptical and optimistic, but just I feel like if you start to dip into cynicism, it just makes it much easier to like other people. I think that's unfortunate. Hello from Brazil. That's so cool. Neurodivergent. Explain that. Just people. So, I mean, and it's so incredibly broad now that you think about it. But the way that I kind of look at neurodivergence is like people who have, so think about like how scissors, the vast majority of scissors are made for right-handed people, but there are left-handed people. And not saying that neurodivergent people are left-handed, but there are people who think differently, either from ADHD or, any of the other things that people have going on that put them outside of this like designated framework of how you should be, or your brain works a little bit differently. Someone can offer like a better explanation for that, I'm sure, please. speak on it. But the neurotypical stance would be like, okay, hey, you should be able to do this and you should be able to do this. But like not everyone goes is aligned with that pathway from neuro a neuro like I guess typical or neurodivergent standpoint. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, okay, perfect. Someone said the neurodivergent means having a brain that works differently than the average person, folks with ADHD, autism. I haven't listened to Billy Woods, so we're talking about nihilistic rap, JT. I'm gonna add it to my list. I will I will check it out. Do you have a couple of books to recommend specifically anything pertaining to these things being spoken on? I have so many, so many books. Actually, I do have a list that I've already done that's kind of it's centered around decolonization, but honestly, a lot of it is just breaking down like propaganda in your brain. It depends on the level that you want to get. Empire of Illusion, if you're like, okay, hey, I just want to like jump into it. There's a couple like roundabout things. There's even like a couple fiction books that I feel like do a really good job at kind of having you think a little bit differently. Tragically optimistic books specifically, I feel like you can find it weave through so many things, but I'll drop a list specifically on like the community tab for you. I got you. So let me just make sure to like write that down so I don't forget. Is tragic optimism the same as optimistic nihilism? Okay. So they're a little bit different. They are a little bit different. With tragic optimism, you're trying to um you're more so focused on extracting meaning from the suffering that you go through. Whereas optimistic nihilism is more so rooted in um you know, nothing matters. So nothing matters. Like just do whatever you want, nothing matters. It, it's not going to have any bearing whatsoever. So there is no you're not really like seeking meaning. Nothing has any meaning with optimistic nihilism. But with tragic optimism, you're finding meaning within the suffering, within the tragedy. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you are I read a comment earlier where someone was saying that um are you essentially like making it so that you are sitting in suffering because you can find meaning from it. No, 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 no. You're not like allowing yourself to be abused or anything like that. But if you are someone who has been abused, rather than the fact that you were abused crippling you, you're using the experience, what you learned from it, to to draw meaning from that. Not that you deserved it or it was meant to happen to you or anything like that, but like if you are someone who's gone through that, then you have a lot to offer to somebody who's like maybe in like the early stages of that and doesn't really know like what signs to look for. It's like how can you take the fact that you suffered and remove suffering in other places? So optimistic nihilism, if you check out the tragic optimism video, that last clip of Rick and Morty kind of perfectly embodies optimistic nihilism. I wanted to add both because I understand it's not a one size fits all approach. And some people will err more towards optimistic nihilism, where it's like, you know what, nothing matters. There is no meaning. There is no one is born on purpose. Just like do your thing. But then there's also people who have suffered and feel like I want to apply that suffering to something. I don't want it to just sit like a black ball of hate in my heart. So those are the differences. I hope that that was clear. It's different in the sense that one is trying to find meaning in the suffering and one is accepted that there is no meaning and it is, it is what it is. Just, come watch TV. Let's see. Let me go. Let me go. Okay. feel like I'm so far down. Subbed from the roller skating video. I love that you guys are here from roller skating videos. I was like, I'm gonna make a new YouTube channel, but I don't. Here's the thing. Um, I think that creators have put themselves in a terrible, terrible position is we allowed ourselves to be like, or most of them have allowed themselves to be like niched into these little perfect section boxes, and it just creates intolerance. So the moment that you step outside of this box, people are like, where's the roller skating videos? No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I am a human being who roller skates. I am a human being who's a tragic optimist. I'm a human being who's engaged civically. I'm all of these things. I'm not just this one thing. And I've watched, I've seen it happen where creators crack mentally because they're like, I can't, I'm miserable right now, but I need to go and be on socials and I need to be doing an outfit of the day. And I'm like, all I want to do is lay in bed and cry. And I'm like, you did that to yourself. It's unfortunate, but like, that's the things that have been shoved down our throats that we need to like niche these specific parts of ourselves and we need to put ourselves in like these little perfect compartments. And I think it does a disservice because it tells people that like you can't handle or have all of this from me, which is it's I don't think it's good for anyone. I don't think it's good for people in your audience and I don't think it's good for the creator. Of course, people are like, well, I follow you for this specific thing, but honestly, I just don't want people who follow me for one specific thing. And then if that's the case, I'm like, go watch those videos. So I'm always grateful when someone says, hey, I subbed from my roller skating videos and they're here listening to me talk about tragic optimism because it just like, you've allowed me to be a whole person in a space that like wants to put you in a perfect little box. And that's just not real. Let's see. There's so many good recommendations in here, guys. If you haven't checked Afroism, essays on pop culture, feminism, and black veganism from two sisters, like, there's so many good things. Okay, I'm just gonna scroll all the way to the bottom to make sure. How did you become so intelligent? Did you always have a thirst for knowledge? Do you read more fiction or nonfiction? Um, I feel like I was one of those people who became aware like probably a little bit too early. I was like probably like 8. And I remember I remember I remember being like 8 years old and I'm like, so wait, you're telling me that there's people who go to work and they just come home and they're kind of sad. And maybe it was like watching my mom be sad. And like I was like a little adult way too early. They're sad and like and then they die. And like that's it over and over again. And no one knows their dreams or cares about their stories or anything like that. And I remember that like breaking my heart as like as an 8-year-old kid. So I've always kind of wanted to know the why. I was one of those annoying kids in school, like, why? Because it was just like there's so much world out here. What do you mean? Like there's so much. So I read a lot of books and I I fell into this trap. I have to force myself to read nonfiction now. Growing up, I read a lot of fiction, and then I fell into like this super hard self improvement trap where I'm like, I don't read any fantasy. I'm so serious. I'm such a serious person, and that lasted for I don't know, like a really long time, years, 5, 10 years, or I didn't read any fantasy, and so now I'm dipping back into fantasy and just balancing things a little bit more because you're not just like a project that needs to be worked on all the time. So read books, ask questions, and just be curious. Like have a curiosity, like, oh, where did that come from or why? There's so many things and phrases day to day that come from other places, and we just think that we know, and it's like, oh man, pull at the thread, just ask why, and you'd be so surprised at all the things that you find. I like knowing how things work and how they came to be and all the things that what we have right now, like how did we get here? I'm reading this book right now called Invisible Hands, and it breaks down to kind of like how we've reached this point where we have so much privatization. And privatization is like things that should be public goods are now privately funded. There's somebody getting wealthy off of things that should be a public good, like water should be a public good and things like that. And it's like, how did we get here? We weren't always here. And what I'm finding is like in the 1930s, a lot of things or a lot of progress that we should have has been slowed down because of like a billionaire throwing tantrums. It's just it's fascinating when you take a step back and you're like, oh, this is why. Some rich person threw a tantrum saying the government shouldn't be meddling in child labor. If a family wants their child to work, they should be allowed to work. Like it's stuff like that. And I think it's for me, it's more of so like a um a desire to not try and reinvent the wheel because if you're not aware of history, it just repeats itself, and there's so many things that have already happened already. So just having a curiosity about like, has this already happened? Well, okay, what did they do? Is this live? How is this already showing captions? Technology. What a time to be alive. I can't read anything without captions. I put captions on everything. Sorry, I know that there's people who hate captions, but someone asked, how are you so intelligent? I don't know if I'm so intelligent. I really like to read and learn. And it probably started when I first started being able to put captions on things. Okay. Power without perception is spiritually useless and therefore of no true value. I agree. And I think we do a really weird thing where we grant people power. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a tangent, but we do this really weird thing where we are okay with people having power based upon success in an unfettered capitalist system, which is not a good thing in my opinion because you don't need morals or ethics or values to reach a certain level of success. And so you're essentially like rewarding that and saying like none of that matters. You got to the top here, you deserve all the power. And it's like, okay, if you crushed people to get there though, you don't care, then like why is that worth more? Okay. You should do a book club. Oh, maybe. That'd be cool. That would be cool. Wow, I literally just found your tragic optimism video this morning in Australia. That's cool, man. That is so neat. Okay. I think that I'm at the bottom. Let's see. Oh, see, people don't even know about my roller skating videos. All right, cool. So your girl loves to roller skate in the sunshine, and I have a video that will teach you to roller skate in like 7 minutes or less. So if you would like a hobby that is also double dipping as exercising, check out that roller skating video. Very cool. Dang, I'm sorry. I've been here for the roller skating vids, so the latest one kind of threw me off. Yeah, it'd be like that. Life. Life is like that, you know? You know what it was is I was very siloed in roller skating, and then a lot of my content, even though it was still very real, like it was still very much like me sharing, like, oh my God, this is what I'm going through. It's like a 20 something girl, and I'm like learning all these things about myself, and I'm standing up for myself. And, this is how I'm learning to respect myself. This is how I'm learning about myself. It was still very much rooted in roller skating and, just like joy. And I think the biggest thing I would want people to do is, if life hasn't broken your heart already, like, please enjoy your life before life breaks your heart, because it will change you. And I couldn't stay explicitly with roller skating when life broke my heart last year. And I didn't want to section like parts of myself off, which of course, sure, I'm sure that like hurts some metric somewhere, some like, reach perspective, but that's like arbitrary to me. So I'm glad you're here. Sorry for the curveball from roller skating, but I still roller skate weekly. I just don't. It's kind of more so for me now, whereas before it was like, I'm gonna share this with the world and da da da. And I still have roller skating videos in the queue. But it's kind of more so like for my heart now than it is for anything else. So I love that you're here for my roller skating videos. Yeah, see, it's like whiplash. The first video I saw of you was talking about life while roller skating, and then the Project 2025 one. You're probably like, "What?" But if you like ever are bored and you like watch my 75 hard videos, it's like I'm reading Project 2025 while doing 75 hard, and it's like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to share this." And so it just doesn't make sense to like silo all of these parts. It's too much work, honestly. I'm just lazy. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just too lazy to do the strategy of like, oh, I'm gonna be the like, I just don't. It's too much. If you want to create stuff, put it on the internet. People who like it will find it, and that's the reality of the situation. Cool. If you want to be a creator, will you grow faster if all of your stuff is like one topic? Sure. If that's what you care about. I'm just happy y'all showed up. I don't I'm just happy you're here. I don't need to have like a I don't need to dominate the world. I have been trying. I love the cat in your videos. Curiosity is for cats. So my cat's name, my heart, I have two. I have five technically, but I have two. And his name is October. That's the one you usually see in my videos because he's normally a lap cat, but he's sitting down and he's going to be 14. So I've had him since I was a wee lass, and he's the sweetest old man. And then my girl cat's name is Nymeria, and they're perfect. They're amazing. Check out the book Runway Inequality. I will check that out. I've been trying to work on mindfulness and impermanence, part of tragic optimism, and it's challenging to say the least. Yeah, I could see how that would be. I could see how that would be challenging. And it turned you into I don't know, you're just like I feel like I might be to a little bit of a detriment, like an overly sentimental person. Like I will find myself I went to like a friendsgiving this past week, and you just sit back, and it's like I'm like carving things into my memory. You still want to make sure you're present, right? You don't want to be like withdrawn and be like, "Oh, this isn't gonna last," but like, you're sentimental. So yes, it is challenging, and it's a definitely a work in progress, but it helps a lot. It helps so much. And things don't matter anymore. Like I don't argue. I don't argue with people. And it's not because I don't care or anything like that. Like with people that I love, like what is worth arguing about? Like why would I fight with you? Like I will listen and I will respect or I have no need to dig my heels in the ground in any type of way with like people who are genuinely close to me because like you could be gone. This will all end. Or I just don't take stuff for granted. Like there's gonna be a point in time, anytime my cats are like being annoying, and I say that very loosely because I never think they're annoying. It helps to be able to like check yourself immediately, and it's like, wow, your life is good right now in this moment. Your cats are alive, you know, they're fed. It makes you more patient. Things there it's not going to last. Things aren't going to last, so what was the book Something Illusion? Empire of Illusion by Chris Hedges. You seem like a very well-rounded person. I try. I just try. That's all. Do you like graphic novels? I like weird graphic novels, like French ones. Yeah, like French graphic novels. I'm learning French right now, so I think a human being can be a failure because I think the closest thing we have to a purpose is to spread love to everyone around us. And if all you did was spread hate, then you failed, in my opinion. I feel, yeah, I mean, I feel sad. I feel sad for like, outside of like people being born that way, I'm just like, damn, like what was that? What, something failed you horribly that led you to this place. And that's really unfortunate. And maybe that's naive, but it makes me sad to think of like, wow, that's really unfortunate that you choose to spread hate. Or like you could watch something. I feel sad for people who can choose to like watch something beautiful, see something beautiful, and the first thing that comes to their mind is like that there's something internally happening with you. And that's really unfortunate because we're here for 5 minutes. And for you to spend that time that you're here in misery is really, it's unfortunate. This chat is surprisingly refreshing. Isn't it great? Like, I feel like I have cultivated a space for the most part of people who I feel spoiled. I feel spoiled by the internet for the most part. Like, one, there's not a lot of controversial things about roller skating, but even as I've expanded into these newer spaces, um, it's still kind of followed the same thread. So it sucks when you like brace yourself before going into a chat or brace yourself before going into a comment section. Like, oh man, what happened? What happened? The internet was supposed to bring us together. What happened? Your Friendsgiving sounds like your joy roller skating in Amsterdam. I try. I try. I'm an introvert, and so when I go to events with a lot of people, my knee jerk is to be like, oh, I want to go home, but it's like you're gonna be home soon enough. Like this is like you don't have to do that. You could be here right now. and laugh with your friend that you haven't seen in a year, and, you know, eat food that other people spent all day preparing for you. You'll be home soon enough, and how like lucky are you to have a home to go to that is peaceful, that makes you want to be there. Great, fantastic. Oof. What I'm struggling with is digging my heels in the ground with people who are close to me, but she refuses to acknowledge wrongdoing. I mean, do you need do you need that? Like if you need that, that's important. But like, do you need someone to acknowledge that they hurt you? You know how it felt. You know what that pain that felt like. Do you need that? And sometimes I think we need things like that, and we put that locus out, like of control outside of ourselves, and we say, "Well, I can't get over this because of you." It's like you don't need someone to acknowledge that they did something wrong, because it'd be forcing you to do it. It's very different when someone is like goes off on their own and they come back to you and they're like, I did this and it hurt you and I'm sorry. You don't want to force or pull. It wouldn't feel good if it came anyway. You wouldn't believe it. You'd be like, "Oh yeah, sure." Like that, you don't want that. So that's like, forgiveness is for you. And it's not really for the other person. It's so that you're not like holding black hate in your heart. Do you like astrology? The astrology girl is gonna get mad at me right now, but like, no. And it's not that I don't, because I think that there are some things that are like, yeah, yes, that's coincidental. I don't know. I feel like maybe I've just had like a bad brush of people engaging in like bad behavior and then blaming it on their astrological sign, and that's really unfortunate to me. And I think that kind of like turned me off from it. But I'm like willing to learn. I love when, people sit me down and they're like, "Let me tell you of and I know someone somewhere is like, "That's so Libra of you." I'm not a Libra. I'm just kidding. I'm down to learn. I don't want to make fun. I'm down to learn. I feel like I haven't had a good exposure to it. The exposure that I have had has been someone who's like just not really engaging in very nice behavior and then chalking it up specifically to like, "Oh, well, it's because I'm a Scorpio." And someone in there is going to be like, "Well, that's so Scorpion." I'm like, "No." So maybe it's my problem. I need to get over it. I haven't read David Graeber, The Dawn of Anything, but I'm going to add David Graeber to the list. You're very grown for your age. I'm 102. I've been here a lot. I've been here a while. Just saw your live, just stopping to say I listened to the entire Tragic Optimism and really appreciated your thoughtfulness and what you said. Thank you. Thought it was the best thing I've had or heard on YouTube. Man, that makes me feel so good. That's crazy. That's crazy because man, that's insane. That's absolutely nuts to me. And I'm very, very glad and I'm very grateful that you took the time to say that because, man, that's really cool. It's really cool when you're just like, man, I have this thing in my spirit and I feel like more people should know about it, and I'm not seeing a ton of people talk about it, and I'm seeing it everywhere in all these places, and maybe if I put it out and you know as a perfectionist you have to like, my dad taught me that when you create, because he's a creator, he likes to make music and art and all these beautiful things, uh you have to just stop yourself and say, this is good, this is good. And cause you'll keep like chopping away at stuff and you'll keep, oh no, this isn't clear enough, this is good, and just leave it alone and then put it out into the world. And so to do that, to say, okay, this is good, and then give it out, and then Y'all are like, it's the best thing I've heard on YouTube. I'm like, that's wow. I appreciate that. Thank you. Gypsy Vegan said the person who spends their life spreading hate may have failed at having a love-filled life, but their acts of hate may have taught someone somewhere something that they wouldn't have learned elsewhere. Very, very true. Someone said a hazmat. Major Tom, Major Tom 33-1 said the hazmat suit is required for comment sections. Man, man, you ever like experience a comment section that makes you just like log off of an application? You're like, I think I'm good for the day. I think I'm actually okay with this. Instagram has become really nasty in a way that I'm just like, oof, no, 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 thank you. The things that people find to be upset about on Instagram blow my mind. Oh yeah, see, Instagram comments are the worst. I've seen some horrible stuff. Okay, I saw a video today. These parents were like taking a picture, taking like handprints of their newborn adopted baby, and someone was like, no matter how many pictures you take, that's never going to be your baby. And it's like, you click their profile and it's like, Bible verse 3:14. I'm like, girl, what? You've lost the plot. You've lost the plot. It's too much. Usually I think it's always a mistake to read the comment sections of things. Man, it's too much. I'm working on a story in a society where tech replaces human abilities. Adonis creates synthetic clothing to enhance, not replace. I need ideas on exploring dependence versus empowerment. Any suggestions? Oh, I love the thought of, creating to enhance, not replace. Let me think on that. If anybody else has any suggestions, I love that. I love that. Where tech replaces or like supports human abilities, right? Like maybe you have tech that's able to like help you free up time so you can spend more time with your family or like, tech that's able to, help you categorize or prioritize your time better to like maximize efficiency so that you're able to spend more time doing the things that nourish you. Like that's what I think of when I think of like empowerment versus dependence. Honestly, hoping my new meds help cause the depression. Hoping my new meds help cause the depression too much. This space was unexpected. So also, I'm hoping that your new meds also help ease the depression. I'm very, very happy that you are here. What was the best dish from your Friendsgiving? Um, so her dad made this green bean casserole, which I've never had before. I didn't know that that was a thing, and it was kind of all right. It was kind of all right. I missed my mom's macaroni and cheese, but I was like, okay, I'll take this. They had macaroni and cheese, but it had like squash in it, which was very interesting. It was a very interesting thing. It was all delicious. Anything that anybody cooks for me from their heart and takes their time to do, I'm happy with. So probably probably the squash macaroni and the green bean casserole. What made you want to create content? Was it a desire to be known or more of a desire to help people? So, funny story. I don't know if you were in here earlier. Clarity, I hope I pronounced your name right. That's very pretty. Clarity. Wow. I've never seen it spelled like that. That's really pretty. Um, I didn't have social media. So I was one of those weird people who were not on social media. And people think that you're kind of crazy if they're like, ooh, what's wrong with you? So for a really long time, I didn't have social media because I was stalked previously. So I was like, just no, I'm just off the grid. And I this was like in the pandemic, I had started roller skating and I fell in love with it. And I was like, I don't know how many people know, one, that roller skating is exercise, because I see a lot of people who are like wanting to get an exercise. The gym is too intimidating. At that time, I was doing a lot of CrossFit, which is very intimidating. It's intimidating for people to go, like go in there and throw weights, but I was always trying to get people to come to my gym and like work out with me. But that's intimidating. I was like, okay, well, and it's expensive. Like the gym that I was going to at the time, I'm like, how did I ever even afford that? Like, what are we doing? But I was like, well, roller skating, the barrier of entry is relatively low. Like, you can cop a pair of skates from like a thrift store. I mean, my first pair of skates I got for like 29 bucks at Goodwill. So I was like, okay, the barrier of entry is low. Most people can like get their hands on a pair of roller skates, or they can like go, to the rink. And they can double up on exercise. I don't know if people are like doing this. And so I started skating, and I had promised myself, like, oh man, I want to be like, I started in January. I was like, I want to be cold by summertime. And as I started learning, I started falling in love with it more and more. And it was like, man, I want people to know that this is an option for exercising. It was never like to be known. It was more so to like show people that you don't have to be limited to, certain things to feel healthy. And I felt like it was a double dip to go outside, because we were like towards the end. I don't want to say towards the end because we're still like it's endemic now, but it was like 2021. So in the South, I would say they had started like lifting lockdowns and stuff like that, but people weren't outside. And I was like, go outside, like move your body. And you can do it alone. Like you don't have to be with people, just like go outside. So it was a very long-winded way to say I wanted people to learn how to roller skate. And it just kind of like expanded from there. Like I would be going through something and I would go roller skate, and then I'd like write, like an Instagram caption, and people would be like, oh my God, like I'm going through that right now. Or, you know, I quit a job that I hated, and that was really scary because I had like based my entire identity on like my title, and like going through that process. I didn't realize at the time that I was like building a community. It was just like, hey, life's hard. This is how I'm handling it. What are y'all doing? And so, yeah, I guess a desire to help people. I feel like help means that you're kind of like, I don't know. I'm not trying to teach, but it's like, this is how I'm doing this. Or, hey, I hate life less because I'm doing this thing. Maybe like if you also tried this thing, you'd hate life less too. So it was more so like a desire for that. Like, how can we swap strategies for our existence? I wonder sometimes, is there really a wrong, or is it inevitable to make mistakes? I feel very strongly that one of the things, so I probably have a list. Maybe I'll come up with a list of like the 10 things that I think we do that are terrible. And on that list, it would be assigning like full status to things. Like when someone goes, that's a bad person. And it assigns this status of it's like a period. Like you're a bad person, or you did this thing, or you're wrong. And that like sticks with people, you know, in ways that we can't really like define. And the same thing with someone's like, you're wrong, or you did this. Someone doing something is not the same as like assigning a status to them. So maybe they, said something that was inappropriate, or like they did something that was inappropriate that led to this. They made this mistake. That's not like the status of who you are. I think it's inevitable to make mistakes. And I think anytime that you're doing something difficult or new, if you're making a mistake, you're growing. And I think social media probably has enhanced this idea that no one makes mistakes, especially if they're like putting the pretty polished, finished mistakes on there. If you go watch that tragic optimism video, there's a couple mistakes in there. There's like a couple of things that like got cut too early and da 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 da. Or like little snippets of things that just like are not perfect. but it's okay. Like, if you're just like 1% better next time, okay, it's all right. So yes, it's inevitable to make mistakes. It's inevitable. So yeah, sometimes people just don't know and they're figuring things out. I think discernment is important, and not assigning full on statuses to people in situations. Not gonna lie, I was forced to know my signs when I came out. Hey, you know what? School me. I might learn something, and maybe I'm just like, school me, okay? School me, learn me something good. I love learning. Teach me about the signs. Um, I think y'all care about birth birth times. I was born April 19th, and at like 1 a.m. on a Sunday. If that helps anybody, put me on the teach me something. It's the responsibility of joyful ones to counteract the hatred with compassion. I mean, yes. I think everybody has their limits, okay? So don't feel like you need to just like let people abuse you or treat you crappy or anything like that. Um, balance, you know. Trying to get out of my own way, do all that I must to return to the production of my larger works. I left a deeply depressive comment on the vid, and now I have to err on the side of humility now. I mean, do you have to? Do you have to? Like, words like have to, must return, like, huh. What if you don't return? Like, what if you start something new that encompasses all that you are now? And maybe it's different than like what it was. But like words like must and have to, like they put you in these like spaces where you're probably not being as kind to yourself as you could be. You're not a beast of burden. You don't have to punish yourself. It'd be nice, you know, but like maybe the works that you're going to return to are like larger than that, and you just haven't seen it. Another thing that I've learned is sometimes stuff's not ready. Sometimes stuff is still cooking, okay? And when it happens is when it happens is when it happens. I started this tragic optimism video, like actual the outline for it in January. In January. And all these other things came up, and there's so many times where I'm like, I need to sit down, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then there's something that happens, or I see something that I'm like, oh, that was supposed to be in the video. But if I started it in January and I don't see something that was supposed to be in the video until July, it's like, okay, so like chill out. Even if you don't err to the side of humility now. You know what I have on my desk? I have a little sticky note that says, in this space, the highest, most arrogant version of you. And it's like, carve out a space where it's like the most arrogant, reckless version of yourself. And then like also carve spaces for like the other parts of you, but just like must. I must. Maybe it's not time. Okay. Maybe you're like incubating right now. I'm going to sleep now. It's like 4 a.m. here in South Africa. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Hope to see more streams. I'm working on it. Sorry guys, I'm new to streaming. But I'm working on it. Let's start some roller skating controversy, JK. I mean, the roller skatings are like roller skating culture is low-key toxic. I try to stay out of it for the most part. All right. I think I think that's it. I think I've kept you guys. I think I've kept you guys a little late. Are you planning to travel anywhere else? I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret, okay? I've been saving up all year to go to Thailand, and I think I'm gonna go on the week of the presidential inauguration because I don't, I'm gonna be back and like ready to work and mobilize and like commune, but I think just that week, I just need to like, So I think that's what's gonna be next for me. Um, yes. I cried watching the tragic optimism because it helped verbalize, man, what I've been feeling for years. I want to find more people in real life who live by that philosophy. I'm so glad that I don't want to say I'm glad that you cried, but I'm glad because I cry over everything, and that made me feel good to know that I people are also feeling the same things. How do you get past the fear of your own power? Perhaps the healer, helper identity. The fear of your own power. I think what you mean here, and like correct me if I'm wrong, is like the fear of maybe like success or being good at what you're doing or like what you're capable of, like being afraid of that. Is that what you mean? Let me know so that I can better answer that. Uh, I was drawn in by a book that was on your shelf called The Privatization of Everything. I just started reading that. Can you talk about it? Man, I think I need to make a full entire video for the privatization of everything. So, um, quick, quick rabbit hole before I leave you guys. There are so many things that as citizens we should have that the powers that be, wealthy people have convinced us to turn over to them. There's, you know, just like a high level example, like there's roads in America that are like owned by Australian companies that we like pay tolls on and things like that. And it's so much bigger than we realize, and that we have more power to impact, but we're just like not paying attention. A lot of things are happening because we're not paying attention. So I think I'll do a whole video on like the privatization of everything, just so that I I think people having awareness into all of the ways that money is made on them as citizens is like another level of like waking up the collective conscious and people like activating on a collective level. So I will do an entire video breaking that down. I think the next video is going to be kind of like breaking down how we can stop or move away from billionaire worship and not villainize success. We're not villainizing success, but I think it's important for us to kind of like take a step back. How did this start? Where did this start? Because we didn't start where we are now, where people are like, yeah, I'll give a billionaire my firstborn child. Like, we didn't start there. There's levels to this. And it's like, how do we move away from that so we can look at things like with like reality and then collectively mobilize to where we need to be? Um, let's see. How did you come to terms with the passing of your brother? Oh, I bought my first house with plans of showing it to my sister and sharing it with her, but she passed away. And never got to see it. Damn. Why are you gonna hit me with this? Why are you gonna hit me with this question before I'm about to leave? Okay. Okay, so if you want to hang on for, 10 more minutes. Um, damn. Dang, that's a okay. Dang. That's a deep cut. Okay. How did you come to terms with the passing of your brother? Damn. My brother passed away April 1st, 2023, and my birthday's April 19th. And I loved April before then, so that was really hard. Um, damn, that's a deep cut. That was hard. So, more background lore, I guess. I had a dream a week before um my brother dying, that he died. Like I had a dream that we were like in this like library and he was on an autopsy table, and it horrified me. It horrified me so much that I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I texted him and I told him, I was like, I had a dream that you died. And I wrote it. I lied to my journal, and I never lied to my journal. I like never in all the years that I've been journaling. I lied and I said that I saw something else. I said that I saw him, happy and with a partner and an adult and living his life, because that's how like badly it shook me. And this is gonna sound crazy, y'all. I'm not crazy, okay? This is gonna sound nuts, but he died a week later, and it like wrecked me. It wrecked me because I was like, why did I see this in a dream if I wasn't able to stop it? And like, if I hadn't been like, I took too long to get the house, like, you know? Um, so it took a while. It took a really, really, really long time. And the biggest thing for me was like not only that he was never gonna see the house that I like worked and saved and grinded and like worked miserable job and took like abuse for years to get to kind of just like save him. It was the fact that I was never gonna teach him how to roller skate. And someone asked earlier, like, why did you start posting on social media? And yes, it was to teach other people how to roller skate, but I think like a really small, probably like bigger than I realized part was wanting to show people, and maybe like subconsciously to a certain extent, like my little brother, that like life could be beautiful, like life could be good. And I think the thing that really did help me was having a community. And when I went to a silent retreat, that I went to a Vipassana retreat. And for those who don't know, it's free, okay? It's free. So if you can find time to carve time out of your life to take these 10 days, I highly recommend it. But I went to this retreat, and in like day 5, after I had like stopped fighting and stopped like focusing on everybody else and stopped all these things, I went for my morning meditation. And when you are not constantly eating, 3 screens a day, you got your small screen, your medium screen, and your big screen. When you're not doing that and you're not, distracting yourself with music and you're not doing all these things, your brain is like pure potential. It's insane. And day 5, I go in and I meditate, and I see like this image in my brain of my brother. I'm not crazy, you guys. I'm not crazy. But I see this image of him, and he's outside of the meditation hall that I'm in right now. And he's like, come on, come on. And I'm like, I'm crying as I'm meditating because I'm like seeing him. And I come into the meditation hall, and he's like putting on roller skates. And he's like, teach me how to roller skate. And I'm like sobbing as I'm like trying to strap on my roller skates. In like my mind's eye, I can see him. I'm trying to like strap him on, and like we're skating like around this meditation hall in my mind. And it was like, I don't know how to describe it to you without sounding crazy, but he was like, I remember being like, why did you show me this? If like, why did I see this if I wasn't supposed to save you? And him being like, you had to see it so that you would have known that there was nothing that you could do. Like it was always going to be that way, which is not something that you want to hear, right? When you're like deep in like, I could have done this. Like it was his path was always his path. And we don't want to believe that, right? Like we want to believe that we were the thing. And if I had just tried this, and if I had done this. And so like hearing him be like, and then me asking him, and I'm still meditating like in this, so like please don't think I'm crazy because it felt very otherworldly, and asking him like, was he scared? And him being like, no. I don't know. That experience, even though I can't describe it and I can't like, you're probably like, oh, you're making this up. For me, it felt very, very real, and being able to like skate with him and teach him in that moment and like feel that connection to him. And it probably only lasted like, like 3 to 5 minutes. I don't know. That helped me kind of like make peace. But that was also after a year of like existential angst and crying and misery and journaling and like trying to seek joy and keeping myself so busy. I think I did 75 hard like twice that year because I was like, I can't. Like, I want to like be present for my grief. I don't want to like drink or smoke, or like any of the things that people do to like avoid. And like, I didn't want to do anything like that. And so I think that experience combined with like that year of just like, okay, I'm gonna show up for this fully, and breaking down and crying in the middle of the grocery store and just like doing these things fully and presently, I think has helped me. And there's still some days that are horrible and misery business, and every time I hear trumpets, like my heart kind of like cracks a little bit, or like, when someone dies, you kind of like, sometimes you like disassociate and you catch yourself thinking about like what life would have been like. And, you know, I think there's some universe out there where, you know, he did it, and he's happy and beautiful. And I think I kind of just like focus on that. There's a place where he wasn't like in pain in the way that he was, to where he didn't really like want to be here anymore. And I think that. So I know that's kind of like a super deep, long, drawn out question, but there's like, it's such a process. And maybe like one day, because I filmed it not with the idea that I would like ever post it, but I would do like these like check-ins because I like really prioritize taking care of my family. Like I prioritize taking care of my mom and my sister and all of these things, and ended up putting myself last and having like check myself. But I would do like these check-ins, and I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever like put them together and be like, wow, this is like my first year of grief, but maybe if it helps someone, maybe. But yes. That was kind of a deep cut. I know I told you that I was gonna let you guys go, but I think being in it fully and not like trying to escape, um because these are like fully whole people who deserve like your full grief. um yeah. Apologies if this is unwarranted. Was Vipassana a form of shadow work? I think Vipassana is different for everyone. I think for me it was. Um, Here's the thing. I had done a lot of shadow work before then, and I had reached that point where I feel like a lot of people who have done a lot of work get where they're like, I've I've done, and I journal, and I'm this and I'm that. So I was hopeless. Almost to the point of nihilism, where it was just like, well, what do you do when you've done the therapy? And what do you do when you've done the journals and you've done the shadow work journals? But there's always work to do. So for me, it was there was definitely an area of shadow work that had to be done when I realized that I was like focusing on other things, or I was focusing on other people, like focusing on like, I'm so good and I'm taking care of people and I'm doing this, and it's like at the expense of like you taking care of yourself, and at the expense of like you actually like being in your grief. So like for me it was a form of shadow work, but it's different for everyone. Sometimes it's just uh sometimes it's light work, you know? It's different for everyone. And if you do have the ability to carve out time, I highly recommend it. There's Vipassana centers all over the world, and they are free. They're paid for by the donations of volunteers because they want it to be accessible to everyone, which I think is beautiful. All right, let me see. Let me see. Do you find, let's see. Okay. I think that's it, guys. I think that's it. I'm sorry that I hit you with the deep cut. October wants to hang out, so I'm going to I'm gonna wrap this one up and I'm gonna figure out a regularly scheduled time um for this. Maybe we'll start it with like twice a month. We hop in and we do our thing. They probably all won't be 2 hours, I'll just tell you that right now, but I lose track of time. I think it's fantastic that y'all are here. So I appreciate you. Thank you for watching the video. And when's the next live stream? I'm gonna shoot. Oh my gosh. Sorry, he's such a little needy panda. Ideally, I'm gonna shoot for next week. If not next week, it'll be the week after next, but I'm gonna make a concentrated effort, okay? Scout's honor, to schedule it at least 3 to 5 days in advance. I'm gonna try and be better with that. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. I will see y'all in the next one. Okay, sweet dope. Okay, you see, old man, we're done. We're out. I'm done. We're done. Okay.